leader, this is the MTN Noon News.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us on your MTN Statewide News this Tuesday. I'm Jeanelle Slade. Well, 4 more COVID-related deaths and 275 new confirmed active cases across Montana today. Now, the total deaths have now reached 164. 2 of them, men in their 70s, residents from 2 different senior living facilities. Now, the 3rd victim is a Rosebud County resident. The 4th victim, this the latest, just moments ago, a man in his 70s from Bighorn County. Now, the jump in active cases is the 2nd largest since the pandemic began. It's the biggest hit area in Cascade County, where 59 new people are reported, which has now reached 337 total. Yellowstone County still has the most at 802. Well, state health experts joined Governor Steve Bullock this morning to address the jump of daily COVID-19 cases. That number exceeding 270 new cases in 2 of the last 4 days, and is a sizable increase in average daily COVID cases since July. The state has attributed a lot of the recent cases to congregate settings like schools, jails, and nursing homes. The state also cites Labor Day activities and social distancing fatigue as significant factors for many cases. State Medical Officer Dr. Greg Holzman says the increase in numbers is a troubling trend that will only bring more suffering to Montana families unless more people begin following COVID guidelines like wearing a mask and limiting social gatherings.
When disease rates rise, we see more suffering, we see more death. We see schools that have to close down, not necessarily because of a health mandate, because we don't have teachers to teach or students to learn. We can see businesses suffer as people are concerned about going out and acquiring the virus.
Now, the White House recently released a memorandum encouraging states to fine individuals for not following mask guidelines in high COVID positive areas. Well, Bullock says he will not implement an action like that, saying ultimately a fine won't stop the virus. Only the collective actions of Montanans will have an impact. Well, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services announces new recommendations for visitations at nursing homes. It is lifting certain restrictions to make it easier for family and loved ones. While visitation recommendations differ between nursing homes and assisted living facilities, the Gallatin City County Health Department is looking into ways to balance visitations while maintaining a safe environment for residents. Increasing evidence shows the mental health component visitations play, but making the wrong decision can turn deadly for senior communities. Last month, the health department did lift certain restrictions for assisted living facilities across the county, but there are still many procedures in place to protect residents. Well, the U.S. hits a grim milestone today as the country surpasses 200,000 Americans killed by coronavirus-related illness. Thousands of flags blanket the National Mall in Washington to honor them. Laura Podesta reports.
Each one of the 20,000 flags near the Washington Monument represents 10 Americans whose deaths are linked to COVID-19. This morning, there was an interfaith memorial service to mourn the lives lost.
It's almost incomprehensible, the level of anguish. To me, it is also incomprehensible that we have no national plan, no national help for our people.
Dozens of volunteers with the COVID-19 Memorial Project placed these flags one by one last night and this morning. They'll remain here until tomorrow night.
Maybe someday we should even have a permanent memorial for the people who lost their lives to COVID.
Nationwide, the average rate of new coronavirus cases has increased to roughly 40,000 per day. Ricardo Aguirre from Phoenix survived his infection, but lost 9 members of his family.
All I know is that my mother's the one that started having the symptoms first. And from there, it was my dad, myself, my wife, my 2 kids, and then my brother.
On Friday, the CDC published a change on its website, announcing that in addition to the virus spreading through respiratory droplets produced when an infected person sneezes or coughs, another way the virus can spread is through aerosols, tiny particles from breathing and talking that can linger in the air longer. But Monday, the federal agency removed the change, saying it was posted by mistake.
I think that there needs to be a conversation whenever there's a change. Explain it in detail, because there are a lot of policy implications for changing that guidance.
Dr. David Agus says the guidance put out Friday could have led to requirements for better ventilation systems in hospitals, schools, restaurants, and all indoor spaces. Laura Podesta, CBS News, Washington.
And Dr. Agus also says masks are the best line of defense for both droplets and aerosols. In an email to CBS News, a CDC spokesperson says aerosol transmission is possible, but not the main way that the coronavirus spreads. Well, crews battled an early morning fire in Flathead County that devoured a home. Columbia Falls Fire Chief Carl Weeks tells MTN News the call to 1815 8th Avenue West came in shortly before 12:45 a.m. Now, Weeks says the home was fully engulfed when firefighters arrived at the scene, but all occupants and their pets were able to escape. The Whitefish and Evergreen fire departments were called in for mutual aid. The chief says the exterior of a neighboring home melted as well. The cause of that blaze remains under investigation. Well, Montana's Republican Senator Steve Daines says the Senate will exercise its right to confirm or reject President Trump's Supreme Court nominee this year. Back in 2016, Daines told MTN he wouldn't support a vote for a president's nominee in an election year, no matter which party had control. 4 years ago, the Republican-controlled Senate refused to hold a hearing for then-President Obama's nominee, Merrick Garland, after the passing of Justice Antonin Scalia. Now, Senator Daines says the Senate should vote quickly on President Trump's nominee, citing his concern over a potential Biden-nominated justice.
What's at stake today is our Montana way of life, and there is a very clear choice. President Trump will select a well-qualified nominee who will protect our Montana way of life, someone who will defend the Second Amendment, who will support forest management projects and the Keystone Pipeline.
Democrat Senator Jon Tester has said the nomination should wait until voters choose the next president. He said that's the principle that Republicans invoked 4 years ago and wants them to do the same this year. Well, two bills supported by Senator Jon Tester that address the widespread problem of missing and murdered Indigenous women across Montana and the U.S. are now on the president's desk. Yesterday, the U.S. House passed Savannah's Act and the Not Invisible Act. Savannah's Act was named for a Native American woman who was murdered in Fargo, North Dakota. It ensures tribal governments are given the resources they need to better respond to cases in the future. The Not Invisible Act establishes an advisory committee on violent crime made up of law enforcement, tribal leaders, and survivors. That committee will report directly to the Justice Department. Well, today is National Voter Registration Day, an awareness campaign first observed back in 2012. Well, social media giant Facebook estimates it has helped register about 2.5 million people so far this year through notifications across its platforms, which also include Instagram and Messenger. Now, Facebook's goal is to register 4 million people this year. This week, the company launched a new campaign to encourage people to make sure their vote is counted. Google's Doodle today will also help users register to vote. Up next on your new news, we'll go cover to cover with all the changes happening at the Lewis and Clark Library in Helena. But first, Brett's in next with your statewide weather forecast.